Hi, I'm Sandra Younger, and for this next tutorial, I'm going to show you how to make these leather and pearl earrings. But the interesting thing about this tutorial is that these are like a no-waste leather approach to making these earrings, because leather can be expensive, especially if you're in a production mode. So what I used for these, I used two 8mm jump rings, some scrap. You just need some scrap wax jewelry cord or any kind of cord that's thin. The glue that I'm using is the GS Hypo Cement. You will need one of your little clips and some cutters. I like using cuticle scissors because they really get in close and they get the job done very, very nicely. And of course, some 1mm leather. And for this project, I'm using 10 large hole pearls. So if you have 1mm leather and you have some random pearls and you don't know if they'll fit or not, just feed them on, make a knot. If the pearl doesn't fall off, then you're good to go. So the first thing we're going to be doing is we're going to be making the first part of the earring that looks like this. So it's two strands of leather. The pearls are 4 inches apart, and it's got a ring in the middle. And so let me show you the quick and easy way to do that. Move our stuff over and get board, and I'll show you how I like to set mine up. What I do is I get a clip and I put it right in that hole right underneath the number 9, and then I put another clip right underneath that one. And what you're going to do is you're going to clip a peg into and then 4 inches apart you will be putting another peg. So let's count over 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Perfect. So you take your leather and you string on a pearl and a ring. Get those rings over here. Pearl, your ring, and then pearl. Go as close to the end as you can. You make an overhand knot. That. Remember, the goal here is to use as much leather, not as much, little leather as possible. So slide your pearl down, and then you make an overhand knot. And if you have trouble getting your knot close to the pearl, you could use like either a sharp pin, a needle, or you could use one of the pegs on your board to help scoot it down. So the next thing is we're going to space our knot. So what you want to do to make sure they're both exactly the same, see the top of the knot, how I'm just kind of making sure it bumps on the peg. So you hold it right there and you just over, cinch it down like that. Right? You don't want this like slanted because then it won't be 4 inches. Then you slide it off and then you kind of straighten it down, back and forth. Then you put your other pearl, and then the jump ring just naturally like slides right onto this section where it's supposed to be. So you make an overhand knot, and then you can use a peg this time. Pull out in this. You don't want to tighten it too tight because the leather isn't it's not very strong. So we've made our first part, so we're going to do the same sequence again. So we get pearl, oops, back here, pearl, ring. So we need to go through the ring. It's on this segment that we just made. So pearl, ring, pearl. Then we're going to do exactly the same thing that we did before. Overhand knot, down, tighten this pearl. So what I do is I just basically just loosely, I don't, in case you guys don't know, I don't like cinch the pearl down. I just like leave it loose and then I pull it towards the peg and then I tighten it. Base it. Remember, you want the top of that knot hitting right there. And then we slide. So all this stuff that you made before should just kind of like bottom. And then we make our next over a knot and the knot down. Boom. And now we cut right there. Now we're going to reconfigure the board so that we can tie on our moose knot. And that is where that 5th pearl is going to be added on. So let's put one at 11, down over 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Flip. And now we take our little segment here, and this is where that scrap wax cord comes in. What I like to do is I take a scrap and I feed it through the ring. What this is going to do, it's going to help hold your earring so that we can flip it in like that. And now the next part is interesting. You're going to need your little tiny clip. So let's put that down. Now here's the fun part. Spacing those pearls. It's actually pretty easy. So what I do is I mean, it's kind of hard to like ignore these, the bright side, because they kind of get in the way. What we do is you take the ones on the left. Oh, here, but let's trim this sticking out. So what I do is I line them up to where one is just like right on top of the other, like this. And I hold it right there, don't let it slip. And then I take this next set, and then I'm going to place the pearl that's on this side. I guess when you're holding it like this, it's the bottom pearl. And I'm going to line that up right above, right there, right above second pearl. Now you're going to bring all this down, and that 4th pearl miraculously. What you don't want is you don't want the pearls to be, but if you do this 4-inch thing like I'm doing, then they won't be even. They'll kind of be like offset. So what we want to do is kind of squeeze right here, because what you want to do is create like a bend in the leather just to give it a little bit of memory. Squeeze it. So I just squeeze it for maybe like 4 or 5 seconds, but while I hold this part. Because the next thing is we're going to take this clip and not using the teeth part, but see that open part right in there? I'm going to clip your leather right in there. And what that's going to do is going to hold everything. So this second scrap of cord that you need, what I do is I put it like on the end, just like this. See, I twist it like that to lock it in. Flip it. And you don't need to put a lot of tension on it, because you just want to be gentle here, because you don't want to like offset pearls. So what we're going to do next is we're going to add a coil knot. And what you do is you take 8.5 inches of leather. So you measure 8.5 inches. Cut. And before you make your coil knot, you want to measure 1 inch of leather. So right here from 12 to 13, there's 1 inch. Place that 1 inch part right here. And now we are going to start making a coil knot. But this one's different than the regular one that I make, because we're not going to be cutting off that long end. We're going to be using it to add our 5th pearl. So you want to wrap once, twice, 3 times, and 4. See that? And it's to make sure your knot is aesthetically pleasing. You want to make sure that it's evenly stacked. So sometimes it could be a little bit tricky when you're tightening it, but I'll show you what I do. That through, hold it, make sure don't let it unwind, and then feed other side Now, don't tighten it yet because we need to put our glue. Make sure that knot looks good. So you take your GS Hypo cement, and what we're going to do is we're going to slide the knot over the glue. So you want to put the glue right where you think that knot is. And one thing about the Hypo cement is, they say don't squeeze the tube, but I kind of do that sometimes because it seems like it's really slow. And always try to keep the tip clean because you don't want to use that dried up glue, because I've noticed, let me clean this off, because I've noticed that when I've used that dried up part, it kind of doesn't, it dries like a weird color. So see how it just naturally oozes out by itself? So you just, that's, want to like dab that in there. So just put a little bit in the middle, on the bottom. Now the tricky fun part is hopefully getting that. Oh, I did it, yay. So now you slide your knot over the glue, just like wiggle. Now we're gonna tighten. Pull here. Not too tight because remember this is leather and it's leather is delicate. So there, I think it's good looking. Let's see that. That's perfect. So that's how your coil knots would look, nice and evenly stacked. So the next thing we're going to do is take this part off. Unwind this, remove it, flip it, and now see how our pearls are nice and even. I mean, not even, but they're aesthetically like stacked on top of each other. So the next thing is we're going to be adding the last pearl. Boom. So I decided to like put one about right in here because it just looked good. So put this in. But I mean, if you want to put it someplace else higher, I think that's prettier than, well, by all means, go for it. I'm just doing what looks pleasing to my eye. So about right there. I'm going to clip this. And I always like to go a little bit higher than where I like put my finger because the knot is a couple of centimeters long. So let's get a needle. Knot tighten. The nice thing about the clip, acts like a fake bead. So then you can remove it and tighten. And then where did my pearl go? Oh, there it is. Put the next pearl on. And now we're going to make our last over knot. See, you do, I mean, there's always going to be a little bit of waste because you do need some like leather to be able to make the knot. But like here. And if you've made it like too short, like mine kind of is, you could get a pair of pliers to help. Here we go. You can get something like this just to hold it, and it makes it easier to tighten up that knot. So, and then you come in and you trim there, trim last. And that's, I guess the waist is about 2 inches of leather. So that's not bad. So, and then I have a tutorial on how to make a basic ear wire, but if you guys know how to make the fancier like wrapped wire, ear wire, then like that. So anyway, that is the tutorial on how to make these beautiful, awesome earrings. And I want to show you like a slight variation that I did with these jasper beads. These had the hole was over 2 millimeters, and I basically did everything the same way. But instead of stringing one strand of leather through, the holes were big enough that I could string 2 strands through. And on this one, I didn't do the extra 5th bead because I thought they looked fine with 4 beads because the double strands of leather looked really neat. So it's basically the same thing, bead, ring, bead, and then you do your knots, and then at the end you do your coil knot. Except, this is a variation where I used two strands of leather, and it looks really cool. I really like this a lot. I can't wait to make the other one. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and I can't wait to see you guys and your rings